Just cheek massages over here, you know? You know how it be on a Monday?
He loves you.
Real zen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They're not willing to not be in this video. It's time to be famous.
Sometimes.
So it's time to be famous, man. Huh? Are you going to talk about trans rights with us today?
Lennox, say trans rights. Trans rights.
Oh my goodness. Welcome to Queerantine, everybody. I'm Amy. I use she, her, hers pronouns.
And I'm Mitch. I use he, him, his pronouns.
So last week we did a video about some of our favorite moments in queer history, and we were going to come back today with each of us having another story to tell you. But instead of doing that, we decided that we're going to talk about the history that's been made today. So a lot of you have heard us talking about why Pride matters and the Supreme Court decision we've been waiting on for months. And it finally was handed down today. So we wanted to talk to you guys about that.
Yeah. So, when we've talked about non-discrimination against people, the language that you'll hear is on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And of course that, is if someone is gay or bisexual, pansexual, asexual, is non-binary, is female to male or male to female trans, or just genderqueer, or any identity falls under those categories. And so it has continued to be legal, although not recommended in the United States, by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Mm-hmm. They've issued non-binding notices in the past that under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that was passed just 6 days after Martin Luther King's assassination, that under Title VII, which protects equal employment opportunity, when we're looking under the category of sex, that sexual orientation and gender identity are included in that. I mean, they've come out and said that as early as 2012, I think. But those weren't legally binding statements. So, when there is no law in place on the federal level for something like that, people can challenge it. I mean, it's as simple as if there is no law, then people are obligated to follow it, mm-hmm. because there's
nothing to follow.
So, it's been something that's maintained for a long time that people can be discriminated against because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. Like, I know myself, I've been in some pretty tricky situations at work, and not at this job, but at others. And the recourse, it can come down to what the company wants to do about it, and what the company's policies are, or what the state's policies are. New York State put in these protections in 2019, so just last year. Anyways, there hasn't been a federal protection at all, and people have tried to maintain that they're protected through the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and the ACLU has backed that up, but certain employers have continued to challenge that, such that it goes to court, and it's continued to go to court over the years, and it has now, it arrived in the Supreme Court probably this year, probably just a few months ago. But what is important to note is that the decision today is actually a decision rendered for 3 cases. So there are 3 cases that are part of this decision that were consolidated together. Amy and I agreed that it was really important to make sure that we knew the names of the plaintiffs. Do you want to?
Yeah, so the overarching name that was used was Bostock. So this speaks to a man named Gerald Lynn Bostock, who was fired for conduct unbecoming of county employees, which is basically code for being gay. This happened in 2013. Underneath the overarching case, there were two more. So Donald Zarda was fired days after coming out as a gay man at his job in 2010, and Amy Stevens began her job as malpresenting, and over those 6 years she was employed by this funeral home. She began her process of transitioning. She came out, and shortly after she came out as a trans woman, she was fired. And this happened in 2013. So unfortunately, Donald and Amy both passed away before this case could be finalized, and before the final ruling was handed down. But it's still a massive victory, and we wouldn't have this case currently. We wouldn't be having this talk right now if it weren't for these three people coming forward.
Absolutely. And, they had to come forward each on their own. I believe they were all three of them different states. I know Bostock, he was fired from the county government of Clayton County near Atlanta, Georgia. Amy Stevens, her employer cited the state's law that preserved religious freedom, as he was allowed to fire her because of his religious freedom, but failed to demonstrate what part of his religious freedom was being violated by her transitioning. Mm-hmm. And the case between
Donald Zarda,
yeah, it was a very similar, conduct-based.
Yeah, I mean, things were fine, and then I don't even know if he came out. He just mentioned that he was a gay man, and within days he got fired. So there was a lot of backlash, and I actually found a really interesting letter that was written by his sister Melissa back in July of 2019. And that was an interesting read, so I suggest you all go back and read that. It just had a lot of information about who Donald was, what these issues were, and then unfortunately how he passed away before the ruling was handed. But we were talking a little bit about the process, because we were saying, it's crazy that these things happened in 2010 and 2013, and here it is 7 years later, and we finally have a ruling. And the process behind that is just incredibly long and drawn out and difficult. And although Amy Stevens passed away before the final ruling was issued, had she not been able to go after this case the way that she did, we wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah. So something that is really important, and I made a brief statement when I shared the article to the Center's Facebook page this morning, is when the ruling was first handed down, because Bostock is the name that's on the case, the initial reports from moments after the ruling was handed down only cited sexual orientation protections. Now, for me, I had a very visceral reaction to that because, Amy, we talk all the time about how there is a historical pattern of lesbian, gay, bisexual being lumped together, and then, our generation and the generations before us have done a lot of work to make sure that the T is included in this community and represented. Mm-hmm. But I was really, afraid that a decision would be rendered that was positive on one category, but not on the other. And all I have been thinking about with this case, but welcome back, is Amy, who, like Amy said, we actually just lost her in March 15th, I believe it was. She had terminal kidney disease that was no longer able to be managed or treated. And so all I can think about is the fact that the ACLU is actually the ones who, the American Civil Liberties Union, which is a national organization, her lawyers actually came through them. And so she was represented by the ACLU. And she actually, and this must be something that she knew to do because of her work in the funeral home, but she actually set it up in her estate that the case would continue to go forward, which, I mean,
That's incredible.
what a legacy to leave behind. So let's actually talk about the decision. So Justice Gorsuch,
Shush.
I'm doing my best. I apologize.
It's a name.
He is actually the one who handed down the decision and read it. And in his decision, he clearly stated that discriminating against someone in their place of employment on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity, he even used the words because they are gay or transgender, is impossible under the protections that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act lays out. And so I'm sitting there, I'm reading it again. I'm reading it a third time. I'm reading the entire decision looking for the hitch that says but no, the decision was handed down very clearly that discrimination is not legal, in accordance with the precedent that was set in some other cases, including there was a case in 1989 that actually revolved around gender expression. So gender expression has been a protected category since 1989, and the category of gender expression was protected because they believed that it would be impossible to demonstrate that someone expressing their gender differently took away their entitlement to being protected under the basis of their actual identified sex. Yeah.
Back for the conversation.
Are you serious? You're so ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Lennox, honey, are we gonna snuggle?
I love the levity that they're bringing, though, because this has been a particularly rough month, I would say, for a lot of people, because a lot of people rely on that face-to-face interaction that they get with their peers at Pride festivals. And as you know, we had to cancel, and places around the world had to cancel, and it was really tough. So that's been hard. And then we had to revamp our Pride festival again because we got wind of Pridefall, which was scary in and of itself. And then, we've had some recent setbacks, I would say, as far as how healthcare providers can or cannot provide to the LGBTQ community, specifically trans people. So, it's been a roller coaster of a month, and getting the Supreme Court ruling is huge because it is a massive step forward. And New York, we set the precedent last year when they created a statewide anti-discrimination policy, but for there to be a federal one is massive. And I know my dogs have been in and out of this video, and it's kind of just, I don't know, they're being needy today. But I love how Lennox was able to bring levity to the situation, because even though we've been talking about some really serious stuff, it's not all gloom and doom, and there is some positive, and there is those warm, snuggly feelings that you get.
This is a major victory.
Yeah. I
mean, it's such an exciting moment to be a part of, and it's not something we expected, is the thing that I think, because, with what's been going on with COVID-19, with the loss of Amy herself, and Donald no longer being with us either, hope is something that the LGBTQ community needs now more than ever. Harvey Milk gave that famous speech that is immortalized on my ankle with my first tattoo, where that's what you've got to do. You've got to give them hope. And this case and the ruling here is going to give people so much hope back. Like Amy was saying, the decision about healthcare discrimination that was decided by the executive branch on just this past Friday. For the Supreme Court to turn around and issue this decision on Monday, it's very clear to me in the way that the civil rights law is written, the way that protections happen, and the way Supreme Court rulings are finite, that these are protections that are not just going to belong to this one sector of our country. But if it's not legal to discriminate against people for these reasons under the basis of sex as being a protected category by Title VII, that doesn't just apply to the workplace. That applies everywhere. And so I'm eager to see, I know Lambda Legal, which is a national LGBTQ law organization, the ACLU, they are all working so hard on this case and hopefully celebrating. I hope that this has been...
It's a hard-earned victory.
A good day for them, yeah. But it revitalizes that hope that so many of us, on Friday, we're feeling despair. And to get through the weekend together, decorate our houses for Pride, and then be here in this completely other position, it's just a real testament to what the legacy of this community is, what it is still possible for this country to be if we all stick together, because we've always been here. I was going to be talking about transgender men through American history today, because there's some really cool people who paved the way, especially my favorite is to talk about the ones who served our country during the Civil War, the Union.
You know, in college, I went to a very religious college, but I majored in social work, and we were allowed to choose our topics for papers that we wrote. And my professor always told me he loved getting papers from me because I wrote very outside the box papers. I'm sure that comes as a surprise to you. But one of the papers I wrote about was the 3 waves of feminism, and specifically how it impacted the trans community both positively and negatively. And it was a really wild paper to write and do the research for. And I was actually considering doing the history of that as well. Not specifically trans people who have served our country in those ways, but just like the wild ride that LGBTQ history takes. And it's incredible to me that even though it seems like I said, doom and gloom, and like things couldn't possibly get any worse, we don't let ourselves get bogged down. And I think that also speaks to the beauty of our local community and how we've sort of turned it around to the catchphrase "community is never canceled," because it doesn't matter how dark and gloomy things are, the sun has to come out eventually. And I think that the LGBTQ community is fiercely resilient and so good at finding those little rays of sunshine until the clouds can dissipate.
And this is a big ray of sunshine, so bottle it up, put it in your pocket, sing that song to yourself, because I'm sure it's going through your head, because now it's stuck in mine.
And mine, thank you.
You're welcome. Because, there is so much work left to do. I was so in the transgender community, every November we observe Transgender Day of Remembrance, where we read the names of all of the transgender men, women, and people who lost their lives to anti-transgender violence in the year before. Discrimination in places like employment paves the way to violence. These are all connected. Oppression is a system, and it's involved in our systems. And we actually lost 2 Black trans women in the last week and a half to extremely violent murder here in America. And so it's really important. There's so much work left to do, but Black trans women especially are one of the most highly targeted groups in America. And, talking about feminism in the trans community, so much of social justice work is intersectional. And the future is intersectional. And doing this work and continuing to find ways to protect and serve the true interests of the people as service providers, as governments, I think is critical to our future and this new world that we're building together.
I agree. Yeah. So this was kind of a heavier episode, despite my dog's appearances in and out.
I just have a lot of feelings.
Well, and it's been a hard road, and this has been a heavy month. We just, I don't want to say celebrated, we just served remembrance of the 4th anniversary of the Pulse Massacre. So, and a lot of information is coming hot on the heels of, or in addition to remembering that massacre. So it's been a tough road, I would say, but I think the beauty is that in spite of the toughness, our community always manages to rise like a phoenix. And
speaking of which, do you want to see my socks?
Yes.
So this morning, when the decision was handed down, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to commemorate this somehow, but I have to do work and unpack boxes. So I put on my Phoenix socks.
Look at that!
Woohoo! Boom.
It's
resiliency.
You cannot see how excited I am right now. I love that you're wearing your Phoenix socks because you put them on with the same exact, what's the word I'm looking for? The same intent as I did just now saying that of like, we rise. And it's just.
We rise by lifting others. And that's what we're here to do. That's what Pride is about all year round. And we're in this together. I mean, there's, like I said, so much work left to do, but it's good work. It's just work. It's work that's creating this much better world that we all want to live in. So I'm excited to do the work.
I am too. Yeah. So we'll be coming back to you next week. We've got a really cool video planned for next week. I don't want to give any spoilies away, but it's a really exciting one, so we hope you tune back in for it next week. And if you have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, questions, concerns, needs, whatever you need, we're here for you.
Yeah.
So until...
Do you want to talk about the raffle?
Oh, yeah. So for the next 12 days, we have a raffle that's gone live. So a lot of the people in our community and the people in our agency have donated beautiful handcrafted items, pieces of art. We've had wine donated to us. We had a candy basket donated.
My partner's amazing gluten-free cutout cookies.
Oh my gosh. If you're gluten-free, you're going to want to bid on those suckers. They're so good. And she makes them in a gluten-free kitchen. And then one of my dearest friends, they're not gluten-free, but she donated 2 dozen macarons. And oh my gosh, she made macarons as like favors for my sister's wedding shower, and I cannot tell you how many I snuck in my pocket. They were so good.
You gotta.
I know. So we have a lot of really awesome things that are up for raffle right now, and like I said, it is available for the next 12 days. The money is going toward our agency, specifically the LGBTQ Center. It is serving as a main fundraiser for us because we had to cancel our program. And I made sure when I was setting it up that the system itself can just randomly generate winners from each poll. So nobody in our agency has any stock in any of it. We're not choosing the names. The website is choosing them for us. And there's a really cool feature that if you spend a couple extra bucks, you can get an additional amount of bonus tickets, which is so cool. So I gave $25 worth of raffle tickets. But then at the end, I added on an extra $5 and I got a bonus 12 tickets when I entered. So I have 42 tickets sitting on there for a tattoo gift certificate that I'm
there you go.
hoping to win. So we've got some really good stuff going up, and our community came together and donated so many beautiful items. And We have 4 tickets to Sonnenberg Mansions, which if you haven't been there, it's stunning. The garden is gorgeous. The mansion is beautiful. We have somebody donated $250 toward an officiant. We had somebody donate a trip to Williamsburg. So I mean, we've got some amazing things.
And what's really, really important about this raffle is like the fundraising aspect here is what's going to help us continue to grow our support groups for both youth and adults. We recently found out that there's some disappointing news out of a place close to us that their LGBTQ services are no longer going to be available for the immediate future. So Amy and I are saddling up to do the work to meet the needs of our community, no matter where they're coming to us from. And so buying these raffle tickets and winning some of these awesome prizes is a really, really great way to help us make sure that we can continue to reach out to the people who need the support and love of the LGBTQ community and the advocacy and services that our agency is able to provide. So, yeah, it's worth it.
It's definitely worth it. So it's going to be on all of our Facebook pages, and it's really easy to navigate. It's super simple. So hopefully you guys find some stuff that you're interested in bidding on, or you just want to make a donation, that's fine too. But we will be drawing the names on the 28th at noon. So that's a Sunday. So it closes at 11:59 on the 27th, and then at noon on the 28th, names will be drawn. They'll be randomly generated based on who donated to what. So, yeah. So we're super excited, and we hope you guys are too.
Bye.
Bye.